So we are now going to have the honor of seeing a video from our United States Senator Dan Sullivan. If that video can be pulled up.
Thanks everybody, and welcome to this incredible 2023 Alaska Sustainable Energy Conference. Now, I really wish I could be there in person with everybody, but unfortunately Marine Corps Reserve duty calls, so I'm going to be putting on the uniform for the next 8 days. I won't be with you physically, but I'll be with all of you in spirit. Now, let me begin with some big thank yous, some big shout outs. First of all, to Governor Dunleavy and his team for the vision and hard work of putting this conference together. Great job, Governor, and I know this is going to be a huge success. I also want to particularly thank the federal officials and some others who flew in for this conference and are going to get out and see our great state after the conference, many of whom I've worked closely with in the past years. You know, it's no secret in Alaska, or in DC for that matter, I have some major disagreements with the Biden administration, particularly as it relates to our great state on a number of issues, but it's a big part of my job as your senator to find and keep allies where you can find them. So we have a lot of allies, Alaska allies within the Biden administration who are there physically for this conference that the governor is hosting. Assistant Secretary of State Pyatt, who's doing an incredible job on global energy issues. Deputy Secretary of Energy, David Turk, who's doing an amazing job. The smartest guy, no kidding, in the world on energy, Daniel Jurgen, who needs no introduction for Alaska, really energy for the world. Dan, I'm so honored that you're there. And of course, Ambassador Rahm Emanuel, the United States Ambassador to Japan, who has actually done a fantastic job for promoting Alaskan energy, LNG, and other things. You know, Ambassador Emanuel's renowned for some of his sharp elbows and opinions, and lucky he's using that sharpness to promote, like I said, Alaska energy. So welcome to all of you and the other folks coming in from out of state. We're really honored to have you, and this is going to be a great conference, in part because of your attendance. Let me just begin, and I think Alaskans know this, but it bears repeating, the opportunities that exist in Alaska with regard to resource development and energy are literally endless. And this conference will showcase these opportunities both for developing traditional energy, transitional energy, alternative energy, carbon capture. You know, the governor has been pushing legislation that's going to make that a great opportunity. We have wind, we have sun to harvest energy, we have enormous hydropower potential, river power potential, all being utilized, but can be more utilized across the state. We have endless hydrogen potential, the critical minerals and metals that we all need for our military, for a lower carbon future. All of that, unfortunately, we rely too much on China right now. We have it in Alaska. So critical there. And of course, we have vast, massive, conventional reserves of oil and gas. In short, we have so much that we need for our country and our state to counter what I've been calling this new era of authoritarian aggression. And I want to speak briefly about a project that I know many of us Alaskans have been working on for years, and that is getting North Slope natural gas to Alaskans and to markets beyond Alaska, particularly to our allies in Asia. To that end, my team and I, with many others, the governor and his team, have spent countless hours over the last year saying, we have an opportunity, let's seize it. So in October, I convened an Alaska LNG Summit, co-convened it with our good friend, U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel. You see, this is a picture. We had all the key stakeholders in the room in Tokyo, investors, producers, engineering firms, buyers from Japan, the Biden administration at senior levels, some of whom will be at this summit in Alaska, the Dunleavy administration, the AGDC, and then we went to South Korea, where we also had strong interests. As a matter of fact, I met with the new president, President Yoon in South Korea, who became a big fan of the Alaska LNG project. So what we did with all of these meetings is we made the pitch of why this project, the Alaska LNG project, has so many advantages and is making so much progress in terms of government approval. So, first of all, we all know this, but sometimes you need to reemphasize it. Essentially zero risk in terms of resources for Alaska. What do I mean? We know we have enormous natural gas, conventional natural gas resources on the North Slope. Over 40 trillion cubic feet of proven reserves. That's at least a 50-year supply for us and our allies in Asia. Existing infrastructure, and of course, there's going to be a lot more natural gas found as other companies, Conoco, Santos, start drilling for more oil in NPRA. There's also zero political risk about Alaska natural gas. What do I mean by that? Well, look, every time the price of lower 48 oil or gas starts to go up, you have political risk. What does that mean? Even today, in the U.S. Senate, we have senators who are looking at introducing legislation to ban the exports of natural gas because they see the price of gas going up in the United States in the lower 48. Well, because our gas is stranded on the North Slope and it's not connected to any other part of the country at the moment, from a buyer perspective, Alaska has no political risk. What about some other advantages? Well, the Alaska LNG project has lower carbon emissions compared with almost any other projects in the lower 48 or around the world. And given our high environmental standards, the highest in the world, we know that we have conventional gas. It's not fracked as it is in the lower 48. We don't flare our gas as they do in the lower 48. We re-inject it. So we all know this, but it's good for investors and buyers to know Alaska, with these environmental standards and regulations, has the highest environmental standards in the world. Now, another huge advantage, particularly in a busy world in terms of exports, proximity in terms of LNG shipments to the Indo-Pacific and our allies there, especially Japan, Korea, potentially Taiwan, is so close with no choke points. 7-day cargo shipment from Alaska to Japan. Related to the advantages of Alaska's proximity to Asian markets are the risks that alternative sources of supply present to Asian markets. I'll go through some of them very quickly. You look at Australia, very high costs, very significant strategic choke points. The Chinese overlooking that. You look at Qatar, of course, that's in a very dangerous neighborhood. It's very significant choke points. The Qataris share their gas fields actually with Iran. Very dangerous neighborhood. The next slide show Russia. Of course, they're an economic pariah, energy pariah. Everybody's trying to get off Russian oil and gas. Canada and Mexico certainly have their problems. Canada with First Nations issues on the West Coast. Mexico, once again, as usual, too much corruption in Mexico to be a reliable source of supply. And then there's the Gulf of Mexico from the United States, getting very crowded, long delays with regard to the Panama Canal. So in terms of geopolitics, Alaska is probably the safest place to get energy from to our Asian allies. So what do we need to do? We need to keep the momentum, particularly at this conference, on what we've already achieved and go to the next level. And we've achieved a lot, particularly with regard to permitting. Essentially every state permit and now every federal permit for the AKLNG project has been achieved. You may have seen that we recently had the final supplemental EIS from the Biden administration. We got the amended record of decision just last month in April. We got through the infrastructure bill. Senator Murkowski and I We're able to get loan guarantees for this project. Now, because they're indexed to inflation, over $30 billion. This is the only fully permitted, federally backed project in terms of loan guarantees in the entire United States in terms of LNG. So this is progress, but we need to keep the momentum going. We know that. To that end, I will be returning to Japan and Korea next month to continue to make the case to senior government and energy officials how this project benefits all of our countries. For us in Alaska, this project has the potential to transform our state. Think about what an unlimited supply of low-cost energy to all Alaskans, including rural Alaska, could do to lessen the costs of energy, attract businesses, even create a strong manufacturing base for our state. The time to get our stranded gas to market is now, not only because of the global demand, and that window is not going to be open for long either, but also because some of our utilities are saying within a decade, we may be forced to import natural gas from Canada to power South Central and Interior Alaska. That would likely double the price that we now pay for gas. That is a future that nobody in Alaska wants. Certainly, I don't want. Also, there are dozens of other projects in the United States and throughout the world that are competing with this project. So we have work to do, but I will say we've made good progress. As you can see from this final slide, we already have many of the pieces in place with regard to the state of Alaska coming together, with regard to the United States government on this project really supporting it, with regard to the U.S. private sector, investors, buyers, some of our producers, but we can use more help from them, of course, and then looking at a consortium to move this forward even more. This project is a win-win-win. Now's the time. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion about this. We can turn this dream into a reality. You have my commitment to continue to work on this. I want to thank Governor Dunleavy and his team again for the invitation to speak at this great conference. And I want to thank all of the invited guests, the federal government officials who are pushing on the AKLNG project like we are. They know how important it is for America, for our allies in Asia. So good luck with everything, and I look forward to seeing you all back at home real soon.